So just so everybody knows, we will be recording this session. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Thank you so much. My name is Renee Marshall, and tonight we're going to be talking about a really serious topic. We're going to be talking about balancing home and school in a Zooming world. Things are really different now. Education has changed substantially in the last, 8 or 9 months now. Teaching and education have changed considerably. They're dramatically during this COVID time, during this pandemic time. And one of the things that's happening is our children and our teenagers, and us as well, honestly, are on. Actually, I should give myself an introduction. I apologize I didn't do that. I'm so excited to talk to you that I didn't even tell you who I am, but let me rewind for a minute. Again, welcome everybody. My name is Renee Marshall, and tonight we're going to be talking about balancing home and school in a Zooming world. I've lived in Santa Clarita for almost 20 years now. I reside in Castaic, and I have been in the field of education for over 25 years. I have been a preschool teacher, an elementary school teacher. I've taught at the junior high level. I'm trained as a principal, and then I went over to College of the Canyons, and I served there as both a faculty member in education and early childhood education for many years. I served as department chair of education and early childhood while I was at COC as well. And I also specialize in teacher preparation, and I've worked with California's community colleges for the last 14 years. And so I love education. I love everything about it. But right now it's a challenging time, and it's probably one of the most challenging times we've seen in many years. So welcome everybody. I appreciate you being here tonight. I want to encourage you at any time to please put questions in the chat or anything that you have to say. The chat can absolutely be active. I try my best to watch it while I am presenting and giving information, sharing information. I'm also putting up my email in the chat, and I encourage you to reach out to me. If you are a parent and you need help, I'm here. If you are an educator and you need strategies or somebody to talk to, I'm here. I also am an educator, and I'm also a parent. I am the mom to 14-year-old twins from the Heart District. They just started 9th grade this year, and they also just started dual enrollment at College of the Canyons. So I've got 9th graders that are also college students, but most importantly, I'm a mom, and I think that's really important that as we're having these discussions, that we're able to be honest with each other. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'd love to encourage you to show faces if you're able to at any point during the presentation. It's a little surreal to sit and see all the black boxes with names, but I also know it's 7 o'clock at night, and many of you, if not all of you, will be multitasking, especially if you have children at home. So, or if you're an educator and you're grading right now. So please do what you have to do, but it would be awesome to see a couple faces during the workshop if you're able to pop in. I wanted to keep myself on screen for a little bit because I am going to share some slides in a moment, but I think it's important. One of the things we really need to do when we're looking at this virtual space, when we're looking at Zooming, was we have to figure out how to humanize this, because, in March, we all thought this was temporary. We all thought this was going to be a couple months, maybe till the end of the school year. I think a lot of us were really shocked once the school year rolled out and it was virtual. I think we've been trying to be incredibly optimistic, trying to get our kids back as much as possible, especially our children with the highest needs, our children in special education and our second language learners. You see some of them coming back to campuses right now, but we're having challenges. Not just in our area, we're having challenges across the nation right now. And so we don't know when virtual learning will end. And so because of that, we need to be proactive to figure out what we can do to sustain in this type of learning for an extended period of time. So with that, I want to share some slides with you. Just give me a second here to get my PowerPoint up. And let's see. Okay, I want to make sure, does that look good? Somebody can give me a thumbs up. You see it looks excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it. So let's first talk about just this concept of balancing home and school and what it means in a Zooming world. First off, as I mentioned before, school is unlike anything we've ever experienced right now. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and unfortunately, in our area, numbers have been increasing. And so, we're in a purple tier situation, which is very different and more restrictive. And what we're seeing is our children and our teenagers in the virtual space and Zooming back to back during the course of a day. My experience right now is as the mom of teenagers who are in high school. And I think about myself when I was 14, and I don't know if I could have sustained what my kids are doing. And so we really need to think about this concept of Zoom fatigue. We often refer to it when it comes to adults, but now it's something that we're going to have to refer to when we're talking about children as well. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. Didn't we just have Thanksgiving break? Weren't our kids just off for a week, right? Shouldn't they be relaxed right now? Are your children relaxed? Anybody who's on who's got kids, are your kids relaxed right now? Or are they totally maximum stressed out? Like Mike, yeah, thank you for shaking head, because I've got to be honest. I live in a house where my kids have an educator as one of their parents. I have one of my degrees is in psychology. I use strategies all the time, and we struggle. So I just wonder how much struggle everybody's encountering, if I know that people with resources and whatnot are struggling ourselves. And so anyways, it's time that we come together. It's time that we think about all the elements that our kids are considering. A lot of times that we think about our kids and we think, kids just have to deal with school. But guess what? Kids pick up everything that's happening in this world. So for instance, and this is at all ages, there's sometimes a misperception that if children are younger, that they somehow don't know what's going on, and that's far from the truth. Realistically, if you've lost your job during COVID, if your partner or a friend or family member has lost their job, if you've been sick, if anyone you know has been sick, if unfortunately you've lost somebody during the pandemic, these are all things that kids will pile on themselves as we think that we're dealing with it as the adults. We look at politics right now and what just happened with our election and the riots and climate change. I mean, there's so much going on. Imagine a child's brain processing that and trying to make sense of it. We really think that all they do is school, but just know that they're constantly watching us, listening, and they're taking on the burdens that we have as well. So, if you're in a household that's been, really strapped financially, your kids will feel that. And so, yeah, they did just have Thanksgiving break and they should be relaxed, and they're not. So just accept it and be okay with that, and know that we all just have to move forward. Another thing too, one of the best things during this time of the year is that anyone who's on the line who has kids, those children will be going to their winter break in 12 days. 12 days. Okay, so what I'm going to say on this is make that tangible for your child. If you have a child who's struggling right now, if you're a mom of energetic 6-year-old and 10-year-old boys, right? Because that's energetic is a whole different thing, especially when you're boxed in right now. This is really the time to make it tangible. And one of the things I think about, if you don't have a calendar, one of the best things you could do right now for the next 12 days is to make one of those paper chains, or have your child or children make a paper chain. And every single day you have them rip a page down or rip a chain piece down. So then when they're having a rough day, you can say, okay, let's count how many links are left. You've got 4 links. Can you make 4 more days of this? And then it's time for be on vacation for 21 days. You want to make things as tangible as possible to our children. So right now would be a great time to do a little chain with kids. Now, we're going to focus on a couple different areas today, okay? And we're talking specifically, welcome to whoever just joined us. Thank you. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about how to help our children be focused, interested, and balanced while they are learning from home. As I mentioned before, this is something that's new and different, and we're now, you may have think like things were going really well, and now you might have hit another bump. And so anytime you hit a bump, it's time for new strategies. A lot of times as parents and educators, we think we get a good strategy, we keep it forever. But what I can tell you with children is strategies often only work for a limited amount of time, and then you need to flip to a different strategy. So the whole goal of today is to get as many tools as you can in your toolbox. Hopefully you'll find some strategies that work. Then you'll also hopefully have some strategies that you file in the back for later, because you want to make sure, like I mentioned, that you have lots of tools when it comes to this area. So in terms of being focused while learning at home, I want to talk to you about some really specific strategies for this. First off, I have here listed the idea of centering activities. Now, when we're trying to help a child focus at home, Honestly, the first like hour or maybe hour and a half of a day is not going to be as hard for them to focus as the day gets later on. And so you want to be looking for certain points of the day where you see your child or children being not focused. And that point is when you add the strategies. You don't give the techniques until they need them because you don't want them to be a distraction. You want these strategies to be a tool. And so that's something that you have to talk about with your kids so they understand the difference, and it's not necessarily just fun. It's meant to really serve a purpose. So centering activities. Centering activities can be something as simple as if you see a child and they're not focusing, you can teach them a breathing strategy. And maybe the breathing strategy is they inhale for 3 seconds, exhale for 3 seconds. You as the adult needs to practice it with the child. You need to help them count what it looks like to inhale for 3, count out what it means to exhale for 3. Any sort of breathing strategy you can think of. It could be small breaths, fast breaths. I mean, let's take long, deep breaths. Let's touch our belly and feel it, or touch our lungs as we're taking these breaths. The more a child When we're wanting a child to center, we're wanting them to connect with their body. We're wanting them to regroup and reset. That's the whole point of it. Another thing you can do for centering activities, and this is one that not everybody loves, but I actually really like myself, is something called tapping. And tapping is a strategy where it's again used for focusing. And it's very, very simple. It's literally exactly what it says it is. It's just a matter of where you choose to tap. Some kids will take their hand and do a tap like this on their hand. My hands probably look so gigantic right now as I'm doing this, but you just do a little tap. You might have something as simple as somebody's going to tap on the side of their face, on their chin. A nice one with the chin is they could literally be sitting there like they're doing their work and engaged, and they could be tapping just to help them center and stay focused. If your child might be embarrassed by doing something like that, I would highly suggest that you show them this part of their hand and have them tap there, right here, right by your thumb. Okay, tap right here, but just hide it underneath because then nobody's going to see you're doing it. You could even have your hands one on top of the other and still be able to tap the one area. And so tapping is a centering activity that can be incredibly helpful for kids. Another centering activity, and this one's super easy, but one I really like, is counting. It could be as simple as counting forwards, counting backwards. It can be something like, I see that you're not focused right now. Let's step away for a minute and let's take 10 steps as we walk around your bedroom. Or let's take 15 steps, depending on how much of a focus you need to do. All of these kinds of strategies can help kids incredibly, so much to fight that Zoom fatigue and to be able to be the most successful student they can be. Being focused is part of that, and it's really important to know. Another thing too, before I get to brain breaks, one of the things that's really important about these centering activities is when we teach our kids to center and do this kind of focus, we're teaching them to read their gut, to read their body. If something doesn't feel right, they can listen to that and then they can respond. If they're in class and they're stressed out and they've lost focus, if they feel that stress, then they start to understand, wow, I need to do a strategy right now in order to get back on schedule. And so this is really important that we can point out to our kids when you are doing a refocus, this is a reset. We can also give strategies and say things like, I reset. Think about when I was angry at you when you threw the trash can over. Do you remember how I counted to 10 before I spoke to you? I know many of us who are parents have done that where you're like, I'm counting to 10 and then I'm going to talk to you. And we do it as a cool down because we need to focus and we need to center just like our kids do. It's totally human, totally human. I want to talk with you also about brain breaks. Now, brain breaks are something that's great, and they take a lot of different forms. And so one of the things here, let me go to the next slide. One of these things that I wanted to share with you is you can find a ton of different brain break ideas online. They have great boards that are called choice boards. So depending on the age of your student or students, you can pick activities that would work for your kid. Now, your child's not going to sit there and do all of these at once, okay? The concept is if a child needs a brain break and they need to be able to look quickly and say, what can I do because I need a break? They can look at this list. Hopefully you've printed it and put it right next to their working area. And then they can say, okay, I'm going to go do 20 squats and 10 push-ups right now. That's a great one. And that's going to get some of that umph out, which is exactly what you need to do when you're sitting here and you're zoomed and you're zooming and zooming and zooming and fatigued. Get up, move around, go outside, go for a walk, pick some flowers, do some gardening. If you're with a younger child and they're like, you could do something that's fun, but also related to what they're doing education wise. So like, for instance, I taught kindergarten for 5 years of my life. Kindergartners need to learn the alphabet. You could literally have, one of the things I used to do is they would karate chop the alphabet. And it was great because whenever anybody had the wiggles, you just stand up and go, okay, we're karate chopping the alphabet. A, B, C. It's completely ridiculous. Completely. But for 5 or 6-year-olds, they love it. They're practicing their letters. And most importantly, they're literally slamming their hands over and over. If any of you guys get stressed out tomorrow, go karate chop your alphabet, and I promise you, you will be able to breathe a little bit afterwards. So the whole concept of brain breaks are just a chance to regroup, just a chance to, you're going to be sitting here. Sarah, you got to go for it. I love it. She's put in chat. She's going to try that. The whole concept is, don't wait till you get to your max. Create a schedule and a rhythm and a pattern where you identify before you reach the max and you make yourself move away and take a break. Because if you wait till you get to the max, especially for those of you with teenagers or even little kids, it's going to be full meltdown. How many people have dealt with full meltdowns in the last 9 months? I'm going to be totally honest. We had one day where we had such an extreme meltdown. I emailed my kids. I told you my kids are in high school. I emailed 2 of the teachers and I said, my child won't be returning to school today because they need to take a vacation at this exact minute. So we're going to go make cookies, literally in the middle of a school day. We're going to stop and make cookies right now. But here's why. Here's why I knew I had to do that. Because I was leading a call with 100 people, a statewide call, and my kid came and got me. And so I'm like, if my kid's coming in when he knows I'm doing, or he or she knows I'm doing something important, that's them physically coming and saying, I need you. I knew I had to respond. And shutting down that day and going away from school was the best thing we did. Can I tell you the most beautiful thing about that too? So literally pulled my child off. They ended up missing more than half of the day of instruction. I emailed the 2 teachers, the assistant principal, and the counselor. And I'm not exaggerating when I say to you, and I can't even say it without getting choked up. Within less than an hour, I had an email from all 4 of them saying, Renee, what a great choice. You did exactly what your child needed. Our educators right now realize that kids are not in a good space. I promise you, they realize it. And they're trying to be flexible. They're trying to be kind. They're trying to give grace as much as possible. But we have to work together and the communication has to be there. And one of the biggest ties to this whole presentation is truly the essential component of communication. Whether it's communicating with your child's school, communicating with your child communicating with you communicating with colleagues. If one of your kids is freaking out and you have to go that day, communication is absolutely key. Okay, so brain breaks, I love them. Do them for yourself too. They're super fantastic. The next item I'm going to share may be a little controversial. The next thing I want to talk about is something called fidgets. Do not get me wrong. I am not talking about the spinner fidgets that were the huge craze a couple years ago that drove both parents and educators crazy, okay? Because what happened there is, as educators, we used to use fidgets as tools, and then they became mass produced. And so they started becoming more of a toy and more of a distractor. And that's not their intention. Their intention is to be a tool. So I want to talk to you today about a couple different types of fidgets. And this is going to sound really cheesy, and I'm going to be totally honest. I'm going to get into this a little more descriptive than I would normally for one specific reason. Both Hanukkah and Christmas are coming up, and I know parents are going to be buying some presents. And I'm hoping that some of my suggestions today may be things that you might find beneficial for your kids. Here's the best thing about it. A lot of things I'm talking about are like $1 and $2 each. So not expensive stuff, which is good. But I want to talk to you too also about this fidget rules that I have up there. Use a fidget only if it helps you focus or calm down. Look at the teacher, not the fidget. If you have a child and they're fidgeting and it's loud or they're doing this, it's not going to work. But if they've got one and I've got the same exact thing in my hand right now, and you might only hear a little bit of a clink here and there, or if I'm on mute because I'm still looking at you, then it's a tool, not a toy. When it's up here shaking and distracting everybody, it's a toy. And you could literally do this with your kids, including your teenagers, and show them this and they'll understand it. Another thing too, do not let others touch or notice or touch the fidget. Use only silent fidgets. So on the left here, there's some examples of fidgets, and I want to show you a couple others. And I literally, you guys are going to, oh yeah, yeah. Did I have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. If anybody has a question at any time, please feel free to unmute and ask or put it in the chat box, whatever you would like. Okay, please feel free to. Okay, so I have a couple different fidgets. Some I have two-dimensional on this presentation, and some of them I actually have in my hand sitting right here, right in my desk. So I'm going to start with the one on the left-hand side. All this is a screw and a nut attached to each other, so your child can literally go up, down, down. You can even buy them on pencils already attached for $1.49 each. You usually have to get them at a teacher store. You usually have to buy a couple of them at a time, just a FYI. But those are really effective, especially if you have a moving kid. Different kids like different types of fidgets. If you've got somebody who's constantly moving, like maybe an athlete or somebody with a huge amount of energy, something like that, a fidget like that where they get to spin a lot, can be very effective. Now, this next visual we have on the left, that big red egg, I have an orange one in my hand. Silly putty. Some of us know this from like the 70s or the, like back in the old days. We used to take it. I hope people remember this. I hope I'm not dating myself here. We used to take the silly putty and put it on the comics, and then you could lift it up and you'd have like, the Peanuts characters, and it was like magical before the internet was here. Things like that were magical. Anyways, silly putty is one of the best investments you can buy. It's literally, you can find it at the 99-cent store and at Dollar Tree. So it's literally about $1. It comes in an egg. If your children are like 3 years old, I would not use this because you don't want anything that's a potential chokeable. They rip it apart. But if you're working with kids who are not putting stuff in their mouth or who are older or teenagers, this can be significant. I have one of my kids. They have probably 7 or 8 fidgets. This is the one they use every day during school. Over and over and over. They just sit and touch it and pull it. And for some reason, this brings a lot of peace. This brings a lot of calm. And so it's an effective strategy if it's going to bring some calm. Now, this next circle of fidgets is one I want to share with you. And I hope everybody can see. I'm going to put mine up really close. All this is it's a little net container with a marble in the middle. And you go back and forth and back and forth. It's like the simplest of fidgets. And kids love these. I don't even know how to describe it. Anytime I buy these and distribute them, people love them. And they're incredibly durable too. And so this is a nice fidget because it's just back and forth. And it's cool because it's got that hard ball in the middle, but it's got this cool net texture. And with fidgets, a lot of times they're looking for that tactile response. So you are looking for something that potentially has that kind of feel to it. The last picture on this visual is one I just recently ordered these, but don't have them yet. It's a little set of pea pods, and the peas are actually stuck in. So you just pinch them out, pinch them out, pinch them out, and they just pop back in, pop back in, pop back in. Super cute, super cute. I want to share also one of my favorite fidgets, and this, I don't know if you technically classify this one as a fidget. Excuse me a second, I'm going to take a quick drink. But this is absolutely a mechanism that you can use for kids to de-stress. This here is called kinetic sand. I don't even remember. This is so old. I can't even tell you how old this is. It's very old at this point. I'm grateful that only one of my kids plays with it because it's not like cross germs. It's just one germ or one person's germs. But almost every single day when I walk in to see my daughter, she'll be going like this, just lifting it and dropping it, just lifting and dropping. Nothing more. But the feel of it is relaxing to her. She keeps it on her desk. Oh, just so everybody knows, all of these fidgets I just took from my children's desk. It's not like I went to a store and got them tonight. Excuse me. I just walked to my kids' rooms and said, hey, I need you to share these with me. I want to share them with parents. I want to talk to you about some kits that are available. And just so you know, I am not affiliated with this, whoever sells these or whatever. I just think they're a good strategy, okay? Excuse me. But for about $20, you can get a kit like the one on the left-hand side. That includes a good amount of fidgets. It might include some of these long, stringy, rubbery ones. These, if you don't want to buy a lot of them, 99-cent store on Lions, they carry 2 of these for 99 cents. Great thing about these too is they get so disgusting and kids don't realize all you do is rinse them in water and some soap and then they're brand new. But what I want to say also about this item in the middle here, this like circular item, this is a different type of fidget. This is you know, when you get like a package and it's got the popping peanuts, or not the peanuts, what are they called? The bubble wrap. This is basically a non-stop bubble wrap. It is a piece of rubber that has the bubbles and you just push them in, push them out, push them in, push them out. Again, it might seem kind of silly to us. It absolutely would relax a child. Absolutely would relax any of us, honestly. The last item here I have on the right-hand side is this is a kinetic fidget, and they're different types. I have one here that's not a full kinetic, but it'll give you like the idea. I actually bought this at a holiday boutique. There was somebody who sells gems and rocks, and I got this from her. And it's this cool ball that one of my kids loves to hold in their hand. It cost me $5 total. It's a really pretty gold color too. And you can put it on the table and let it spin. A kinetic spinner will just continually spin for a long period of time. This one, you'd have to keep spinning it because it's not designed the same, but it's really this idea that you can spin something that will mesmerize you for a minute and will help to calm you down. The funny thing is when I bought this for my son, my daughter liked it so much that the next week I went to another boutique and thank goodness the same vendor was there. I ended up buying her the same exact ball. And I'm very glad I did. One of the cool things too is when you use fidgets with your kids, they start getting their own fidgets. I had something, I want to share this. I think it's so funny. This was sitting in my daughter's room. Can you guys see what this is? It's one of those little tags that they put on new tennis shoes so you can touch how the new tennis shoe is going to feel soft-wise. She kept it and she leaves it on her desk and she squeezes it because you squeeze it together and then it reforms. And so for her, it's relaxing. Another item I want to share, and this one's kind of funny. I never in a million years would have thought this, but my daughter found her own fidget. And that's something that we need to think about too. Kids can find their own sometimes. It's not necessarily ours. So I walked to my daughter's room. She had this little container here. I'm not sure if you've ever seen these. They sell them at 99-cent store and Dollar Tree. You can tell I was an elementary school teacher for years because I constantly reference those two stores. But check this out. It's a little travel brush. For her, pushing it in, pushing it out, and touching the bristles are enough to relax her. So funny. Something so simple can be effective, and that's really important to know. I recently found something also at Dollar Tree that is not technically a fidget, but I do think it would be really cool to have on a desk for a couple of reasons. Hopefully you guys remember these from when we were younger. They used to have these little pom-pom people, and they have the little feet that when in the 70s or 80s, they had the little antenna. And these ones say different messages too. So here's why I like them. First of all, positive messages. You've got one that says super. You've got one that says wow. They're $8 for $1, so they're a little bit more than 10 cents each. They're pom-poms. Kids love pom-poms. They're going to take it. They're going to squish it. They might rip it apart. That's totally possible, but it's still serving a purpose. They might take the googly eyes off. No biggie. They might take off the sticker and stick it on themselves and stick it over and over. As silly as it sounds, if it's going to cause some calm, then it is effective. And that's what we're constantly looking for. We're looking for ways for kids to be calm. Now, I want to share with you here something that I have not purchased yet, but I think is fascinating, and I'm looking into getting it soon. These are called calm strips. And for any of you who've ever used a nail file or an emery board, it's very similar to that concept. But imagine if you could peel off the textured part and have it be a sticker on your phone, or a sticker on your computer, or a sticker on your wallet. When you're feeling stressed out, you literally touch it with your finger and the friction of it will relax you. They also create these in different colors and patterns that are really supposed to be intentional to help people feel good and to help people get calm. And then they have, see this little diagram here? This is why it's effective. I want them to just say it's really just the sticker from an emery board, but we're able to market it in a very clever way. So, but really it's a great, great, great way to calm ourselves. Another thing when it comes to being focused and learning at home, communication with the teachers. Because if your child is struggling and they're not focusing, you need to talk to the teachers so that way you're both on the same page and they're also watching and you're working together to help that child be the most effective they can as they're learning. It really is a two-way road though, and it's important. And for anybody who's got kids in junior high and high school, I get it. It's hard when they've got so many teachers and you're trying to stay in communication, but it's also very healthy, especially if your child is struggling. So don't forget to reach out to your teachers or principals or administrators. Everyone is here to help. And the truth is, we're all trying to figure this out together. Let's talk now a little bit about how do we keep kids interested while they are learning at home. First thing I wanted to share, and I'm going to put these up in the chat. Whoops. I wanted to share just a couple field trip links with everybody because there are so many wonderful virtual free field trips available right now at the click of a hat. If you're finding that your child's not interested in learning, maybe they're not interested in the content that they're being forced to learn right now. It doesn't mean they want to learn. It doesn't mean they don't want to learn. But I think about it, I'm going to be really honest. Like I remember 7th and 8th grade, all the time we spent on geography and oh my gosh, it was so boring to me. But if somebody would have said, hey, Renee, you're learning about, I don't know, you're learning about US geography. Let's take 5 field trips to states that you've never been to. Maybe I would have been a little more invested. Maybe it would have felt like something I could do or something I could see or something I could dream of. Right now, we need to find ways to give kids dreams and hopes and the idea that the future is still there. Even though right now seems hard, the future is close. You know what I mean? And so show them the field trips, show them what it's like to travel to places and to see things and to share resources. And one of my friends did something so smart. At the start of the pandemic, before everything was going to be, like before it was official that we were going to be in for a long haul, and before all the curriculum came out, she literally made a list of different field trips and said to her kids, she has 3 children, she said, you've got to go on at least 2 field trips a week. You guys can go together or you can do them separately, but you got to go check out new things at least twice a week. And so because of that, her kids then got interested in doing the field trips. And I think it's just wonderful. We're always trying to help kids with as much interest as possible. Sandy, I see your message in the chat. I am happy to share the PowerPoint with you. I was talking with Jenny from the city. We're going to load it on the city website. I'll also put my email in because you can just shoot me an email and I am happy to get that to you because I'm always just looking to be a resource and I'm always happy to share. So please, we'll make sure we get that to you. Okay, let's go ahead now and talk about extracurriculars because extracurriculars are trickier right now. Kids don't have as many opportunities. A lot of things that used to be face-to-face are now virtual. It feels like things aren't as doable because they're in a different format or things look different. Different can be okay. It took me about 3 months to convince my son to try drumming. He has lessons starting in January. It's what his new thing in 2021 to try is going to be. I tried to convince him to start in October. He wasn't there yet, but he agreed to start in January. So guess what? We already signed up because once mom has paid some money and we're officially signed up, it makes it a lot more tangible to the child. So, he said he doesn't want to do it yet, but he wants to do it in January. Great. Guess what? I paid, printed, and put the receipt in his room. So it's tangible now. And that will help him to know that he needs to follow through with that commitment, which that commitment for drumming will help him to be fuller and to be better and to be healthier because he will be doing other things. Now, the extracurriculars, though, they look different, but they're not fully gone. I have a daughter who goes to Star Dance every single week, and she's taking an outdoor tap class. So there still are some opportunities, but they're a little trickier. I'm not gonna lie, they're a little trickier, but there's ways to still do it and ways to still be involved. One local resource now that I want to share with you, I think is one of the best things happening in Santa Clarita, and that is our libraries. Our Santa Clarita libraries, you guys, they are doing phenomenal stuff. If you are not going there once a week, you need to start going. The best thing too is they know we're in the middle of a pandemic. So everything they are doing is online, but they also have a ton of grab and go activities. And so just yesterday, my kids didn't want to leave the house. I'm not sure if anybody else is experiencing that. My children don't ever want to leave anymore. and which is not healthy. And so we talk about what's healthy and what's not. And so yesterday I said, you know what, we need to go to the library because we need to go pick up our grab and goes. And so I had one who was like, let's do it. And the other one who's like, oh, I don't want to leave the house. And so anyways, we got out, went down to the Newhall Library. I was working for most of the day, so it was later in the afternoon. The teen grab and go bags were already gone, but the adult grab and go bags were still there. And so it would be, there's so many different things that they're doing both virtually and with kids that are free that we can all do. Sandy, I appreciate that you're saying that this is a great way to get them off of the electronics and TikTok. Absolutely. I think, I love this one too from Catherine. My 10-year-old would become the couch if his karate wasn't available. That is funny. I love it. Catherine also made a point here too. Those grab and go kits are gone fast. People are getting to know them more. When I went yesterday, they were gone for the teenage ones. I called another library and they were already gone too. And they just released them yesterday. So, but the great thing was I left with 2 adult kits. My 2 kids, I signed up for an art class that happened today from a Cal Arts person from the library. That's for 3 weeks. They both got art bags. Yesterday we left, we had 4 different goodie bags from the library. And so, and kind of a funny thing, I also got a swag bag and there was a book in it, and my 14-year-old daughter stole it right away because she said it looked like such a great topic. So thank you, library, for choosing good topics that even our kids are gonna love. But there's so many great things. We really, really, really want to tap into this. Our local resources in Santa Clarita, not just our libraries, but also our city of Santa Clarita, make sure you're checking out the seasons catalog. They had a grab and go for Thanksgiving that not only was a bag of different activities, but they even had a restaurant, or excuse me, a grocery store gift card in there to help families out. So our city of Santa Clarita is trying to pump out resources to all of us. So take them up on it. They're fantastic. Seriously, take them up on it. Okay, let's talk a little bit too about how do we help kids stay balanced while they're learning at home. Okay. I want to talk about this because I really think that it's totally essential that we figure out a way for balance. Balance can be something like, let's look at what the day looked like. Let's talk about what the schedule is. What is the child's schedule? What's your schedule? Is the schedule aligning? Is the schedule chaotic? We have to set the tone for balance. I'm in a situation right now where my work schedule has changed in the last few weeks and it's become a little chaotic. And just today I said to my husband, I need to step back, regroup, and change things. Because I have found that with my kids, and this might sound like the smallest of things, but it's huge. I have found that on the days that I run meetings all day and I don't stop and make lunch for my family, I end up having cranky kids who haven't eaten, or they've eaten like a little bit. My daughter, I swear, after Thanksgiving, she just wanted mashed potatoes for every meal. And I'm like, you can't just eat mashed potatoes alone. Don't get me wrong. I love my mashed potatoes, but that's not going to give your body the fuel it needs. And guess what happens? When our kids aren't eating consistently and aren't eating well, or not sleeping enough, or not sleeping consistently, they become grumpy messes like we do. And it just adds to all of this. So one of the ways that we keep balance with learning is we have balance of schedule, if possible. And I know sometimes it's not possible. If you're working 3 jobs, just don't even listen to what I'm saying about balancing a schedule. Because if you've got 3 jobs, you just got to go when you got to go. But there are things that we can control. There are things where we can be checking in to make sure our kids are eating and making sure that our kids are getting to sleep. You would be shocked if you went onto the American Association of Pediatric website and saw how much sleep is actually suggested for children. To this day, my 14-year-olds will be like, Mom, why can't we stay up on a school night past 10? And I'm like, because you really need to be in bed by 9, because your body needs X amount of hours. We're always shooting for 10 hours. I know that sounds like a lot, but it's really not when it comes down to when did they get to sleep? Did they wake up at all during the night, and all those different transitions? We really want 100% to help our kids be balanced by being calm, having a good schedule, a good sleep schedule, a good work schedule, having a good eating schedule, just kind of all those pieces. Now, I have a reflection question that I'm hoping people may want to answer either in chat or out loud. When is your family 100% away from technology right now? When is your family 100% away from technology right now? Anybody who's willing to share? Sandy in the chat box just said not at all. I appreciate your honesty, Sandy. Anyone else? Anyone else getting away from tech at all right now?
Renee, I'll jump in. It's Sandy verbally here.
Oh, hey, Sandy.
Hi. First of all, thank you so, so much from the bottom of my heart for what you're sharing with us today. I'm finding it as a very refreshing resource.
Excellent.
And I'm very verbal here in Castaic as well. And there's things that I do here also. And the children's mental well-being is really something that's been hard on my heart.
Yep.
So yeah, one of the things that I'm really struggling with, I'm a grandmother and my grandchildren live with me, and I see them constantly on, on social media and TikTok, and I tell them that's poison, stop looking at that. But it's
Yep.
so hard in all transparency to monitor them and support my daughter while she's working, while I'm also on the computer, and I'm thinking, God, I need them to be babysat while I'm doing my job. So that's my struggle. But I see the importance of getting them away from that. So these are great things that you're offering.
It's hard though. I don't want to make it seem like it's like this easy breezy thing. And one of the things that I do is I'm like constantly problem solving and like trying to figure it out and asking people. I had something come up with myself recently where I realized that my kids were on their phones as they were on their school computers. Not the whole time, but I could see what was happening. And so I asked one of my friends about it, and she was like, "Oh, we just started a new strategy with that." And I'm like, "Okay, what?" And she goes, "Oh, we just have a rule now that when it's time for school, your phone stays outside of your room, on the floor, right at the doorway, and the child likes to put it face side down so it stays private. So the phone is tangibly outside the room in the doorway." And that's for an older child, you know? So, but if you've got a child that's working at the kitchen table, then the phone is tangibly next to the front door. You know, I think one of the things is we have to make it happen too. And Sandy, I'm with you. It's hard. And especially if you're working and trying to make it all work. You know, Catherine put in the chat that when we're outside on walks or hikes, Catherine, thank you for keeping that sacred. Because one of the things that drives me nutty is when you see people out walking and they're like this walking, or their kids, or they're at like a store or something, and it's like they're plugged in all the time. Now that we have to be plugged in for school and for life as much as we have to conscientiously pull ourselves away from these for certain portions, or else it's not going to be good for any of us. So it's really important to kind of stop and say to yourself, when are we away? And if we haven't been away for 24 hours, then what are we going to do today so we can get away? Oh, Catherine, I'm there with you. I'm a little bit on the hobble right now too. I can understand that. But so one of these things that we need to do here when we're looking at this balancing is really saying to ourselves, how do we define this for my family? Because my definition of balanced may be different than Ingrid's, maybe different than Jenny's, maybe different than Miriam's. Like it doesn't have to be the same. And another thing too, balance is not an all or nothing. So you might not have balance today, but you may be able to get balance tomorrow. And so one of my biggest mantras during all of my last probably 10 years of my life is progress, not perfection. Because I find that the more I try to be perfect, the more I drive myself crazy. And so, because any day you could look in the mirror and tell yourself 20 things that are going wrong. I'm not going to live in that deficit model. I'm going to live more in an asset model. And I'm going to say to myself, what can we do? So maybe I can't do everything, but for my family, this is going to sound small, but I'm going to be honest. A huge one is me changing my schedule so I can make sure that my family has breakfast every morning. And that might sound small, but sitting down the four of us at a table in the morning, that's nobody's got a device at that point. We're checking in. We're almost kind of relaxed as we're having like breakfast together. We like enjoy it, So, what does this look like for you? Maybe it's having dinner together. Maybe it's like Catherine and it's a family walk. Maybe your family watches Family Feud. So maybe you're not on a device, but you're watching TV or a movie together. Family game nights, like Sarah, family game nights have been a savior for all of us. I know that for sure. So you have to think about, what does it look like for you? And here's what, just keep saying this, find the calm. We need to find the calm for our kids, because if we are reactive, we can't expect them to have the calm. Kids are constantly looking at us as the model for how to respond to life. So if we're losing it during the pandemic, we can't expect our kid to have their head on straight. Imagine if they're losing it, look, stop and say, what am I doing, or what have I been doing the last couple days to kind of be the catalyst for my kids' behavior? And maybe it's not me, maybe it's my partner or my husband, or maybe it's one of my kids, or maybe your grandma's living with you or somebody else is living with you. It's really important to say this: find my calm, find my calm. That should be your grounding. That should be your centering. Really thinking about what is it that's going to make you calm. And don't feel guilty if watching 5 Hallmark Christmas movies makes you feel calm. Okay. Let the guilt go. Let the guilt go, everybody. Right. And I love this too. Ingrid said, maybe even sharing how we're distressed. Our children have compassion for us and they understand a lot. And if we model and we say that we're having a rough one, guess what's going to happen when they're having a rough one? They're going to know that they can come to us to be that rock and to be that kind of, moment, Oh, I appreciate this, Sarah. I'm struggling with the no phone thing when my kid was in school and she could chat with friends throughout the day, right? And then suddenly you feel like, oh, but if we take it away, they're not going to socialize, right? Here's the thing though. Are we teaching them how to have intentional socialization?
Mm-hmm.
Not just this random constant. And that's something I want to talk about next, Ashley. Social growth during remote learning. How do we have them grow socially? How can they socialize right now? I mean, it is weird, isn't it? I'm sure everybody else is in the same boat as me. Like, because you're like, oh, I want them to FaceTime. I want them to Zoom. I want them to be on the phone. I want them to be on, Google Hangouts. And it's all these two-dimensional like things. And so how do we keep those? But then how do we also like take this two-dimensional world and humanize it? Sarah mentioned game nights. One of the best things, my dearest friend, some of you know Renee Fernando. I absolutely love Renee Fernando. And her family and I early on in the pandemic realized that we needed to do something because our kids are all best friends. We've got 5 kids between the two of us and our kids love each other like they're brothers and sisters. So we're like, how do we not see each other? So at the very beginning of quarantine, when we were incredibly locked down, we bought games. Like we bought Battleship and we dropped off one half of the Battleship game at one house and the other half at the other house. We bought lottery games, or excuse me, not lottery. We bought Loteria and we bought bingo and we would just split it and just drop it off at the 2 houses. And this is when you're like still wiping down every little thing that somebody else touched and all that. And it maybe it wasn't plan A, but watching my son play Battleship with one of his besties on the computer and they're laughing and giggling and saying, hey, do you want to play next week? That was intentional socializing. You know what I mean? That was using this space, this virtual space as a tool, just like the fidgets, not a distractor. When our kids then are texting all day long, are they socializing? Or is that a distractor? And I don't have the answer because honestly, it's probably a mix of both. But when we're really looking at this, this social growth with kids, we need to think about also monitoring their connection. And part of that, and this is something I've learned recently, just because one of my kids needs it, we're actually using the term isolating. I have one of my kids who doesn't like to hang out as much as other people. And what we found is intentional isolating. And so now it's just a matter of me saying, are you isolating? And that is what resets my kid. My kid goes, oh yeah, I guess I have been. Can I call Nana tonight? Or can I FaceTime with grandma? Or is it okay if we drive over to so-and-so's house and just stand outside, 10 feet away from them and say hi with our mask on? Another thing too, is also this concept of when you say, are you isolating? You always have to have a plan. So for instance, last night I went and there was somebody who I absolutely love who just recently had a baby. And so I had presents I needed to drop off, but I knew I couldn't really see her. So last night I said to the kids, you guys have to come with me. We're going to go to Maria's house and drop off her baby presents. They're like, oh, Mom, it's like 8:00 at night. We would just, no. We went, and I'm like, no, let's go. It'll be fun to see her. So I had 2 kids that didn't want to go. Guess what? We drove over. She comes out and I'm like, let me roll down the window. And they're both like, Maria. They didn't realize how important it was to see her until they saw her, because that's what was tangible to them. So while they were considering if they should go or not, it's like, it's easier not to go. And then the moment they went and saw her, I could literally see that their souls were nourished by this simple interaction of her saying hello and physically seeing her. So when it comes to the social growth, don't underestimate any piece of this. If you can drive somewhere and drop something off, if you can, any way that you can be connecting, we want to give that connection. We want to provide the opportunities for connection as much as possible. Now, this leads right into this next part of emotional growth during remote learning and how do we capture the moments of life. Now, when we're talking about our emotional growth, a lot of that is a reflective piece, but also an expressive piece. So in terms of reflection and emotional growth, this is a healthy time to be writing in a journal, writing letters, anything that you're reflecting and thinking about. You could do video journaling, but honestly, at this point, I think I would say like write something down, make it a little more tangible. In addition to that, though, emotional growth can take place as an expressive piece as well. So for instance, I mentioned writing letters. That's internal, but also external. During the pandemic, my mom's 86 and she didn't want to move in with any of us. I have 3 older sisters. She didn't want to live with us during the pandemic. The only time that she's left her place since March was when there was a fire close to it and she had to evacuate, only time. And so what I've done is not only write letters, but I take pictures of regular parts of life. I got a new bird bath, Mom. Want to show it to you. My mom also doesn't see very well, so usually I will write in big black Sharpie descriptions on the back of what it is. Hey, Mom, here's a picture of my dog sleeping, like the smallest of everyday things, right? But I mail them with a little letter saying, hey, I want to let you know what's been going on this week. And it's not everything, but it's something. And it's important. This is a great time where we can encourage some of the lost arts with our kids. This is a time where we can encourage letter writing and crocheting and these, fiber arts and things we haven't seen for a while and things that are new and interesting to our kids. It can't hurt at all. I think about too the emotional growth. Things like, did any of you do a boo-gram during Halloween where you left that little bag with treats in it on somebody's house that said, you've been booed? That is absolutely emotional growth. That is filling up the vessel of emotional growth. And so even if you do a boo thing or a secret Santa, or maybe you donated some food to the food pantry, we've had a lot of people that needed food in the past couple months. Maybe you made some toiletry bags for Bridge to Home and you dropped them off. Anything we can do to capture the moments of life, that will help the emotional growth of the children and teenagers that we work with. One thing too, I want to point out, we had something happen really interesting before we went into this larger lockdown. Our family, as I mentioned, the Fernanos, but we also have very, very minimal people that we have seen during COVID. But it's literally like the same exact 5 people over and over and over. And my twins both had one boy and one girlfriend that they're friends with over in the backyard. We've done everything only in the backyard. We have a very incredibly obsessive compulsive process and whatnot. But one of the most beautiful things happened a couple weeks ago. It was getting cold out and we're making the kids stay outside the whole time. And so we had a fire pit. I got like a $30 fire pit from Target. Nothing very snazzy at all, okay? But at the end of the night, my teenagers came in. My daughter said to me, wow, Mom, the conversation we just had around the fire pit was probably one of the best of my life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, oh my gosh, we were talking about our hopes and fears. And I started crying because I was reflecting on how appreciative I was that we've been friends during the pandemic and that we've got to see these 2 people a couple times. And, so-and-so started crying. She's telling me about this like super emotional experience that happened in my backyard with these 4 14-year-olds around a fire pit. There's still opportunities for these moments that I'm hoping she remembers that night around the fire pit when she's 46 years old like me. And when she's thinking back on the pandemic 20 some years from now, I hope she goes, man, I remember that night at the fire pit. Capture those moments, love them and make them as, make it all as tangible as possible, Now I want to talk about one more piece before we start to wrap and go into questions for the night. This concept of resetting. Academic growth is something that kids are doing all the time. A lot of times we get really worried and think that somehow they're not going to be able to catch up and whatnot, and it's going to be okay. We need to remember right now we're in a pandemic. We've never experienced this before. It's okay that we allow ourselves to do a reset. Sometimes it might be you're resetting 3 times in one day. It does not mean that a reset happens and that's it, and you're good to go forever. It's really not, unfortunately. But it's important that we allow ourselves to reset. It's important that we model what it means to find your calm in front of your child. It's important that we really are hoping for that academic growth and supporting that academic growth. But please know right now, all the academics, we can catch this up, okay? The social, emotional, and the well-being of our kids, that's got to be at the forefront right now. Because if they don't have that, the academic growth is like nothing. And so we've got to have that first, and then the academic growth will come with it. And if there's remediation needed at some point, it's all going to catch up. All have faith in that. We still have all our special ed rules, and schools are trying to do as much as they possibly can. Another thing I want to talk about too is I often talk about the need to model for our kids, and that they're watching us constantly. But I also want to say it's not necessary to have a toxic positivity where you're trying to make everything positive. If you're having a really rough day, label it for what it is, call it for what it is, and then package it up and be done with it as you move on to the next day. That's what your child has to see. They have to see us being resilient and having a rotten day and still being able to wake up the next day and have hope that things are going to be better. But at the same time, you can keep it real. Kids know when we're fake. I'll tell you that. I keep this sticker up in my office. I wish I could just show it to you, but I would have to move my whole system over. It literally says, "Don't lie to kids." Don't. There's no need to. They read us like we can't believe. And so be honest with them, but also you try and keep that positivity, but really be honest with them too as much as possible. Another thing as well, we've got to model kindness and we've got to model grace right now. Things are loopy, and just know it, just embrace it. You know what I mean? And so if you have an opportunity to be kind today, do it. If you have an opportunity to show grace to somebody when they're in a stressful situation, do it. And if you're in a situation where you need to ask for grace or your child needs to ask for grace and you need to help advocate for them, this is the time. This is the time. Communication is so essential here too. This is about communicating with your kids, communicating with your partners, communicating with your families, communicating with your school. I mean, it's like a reciprocal. It's got to go back and forth. And so don't ever think that your communication is going to be a burden to the person you're trying to communicate with. Especially if, like, I know it's hard when we're working with a teacher, and I think about our high school students, and the teachers have 150 kids, and can I really send 2 emails in one day? And they're trying so hard because they want what's best for our children too, and our teenagers too. Another thing too, take time and pace yourself. This is not a rush. We don't know when this is going to end. And that's okay. It's really, really okay. It's great that we can take time when we can, speed up when we can, but just allow yourself that. Give yourself grace. I think that's an important thing too. And always know to ask for help. There's so many people here that are trying to help. And there's people like me, I might not know all of it. And I'm not ever going to lie and tell you I'm perfect every day. I'm far from it. But I'll try my best to help you connect to who you need to connect to. Or if you need tips on how you talk to, your child's teacher or the principal, or how do you get a student, like say your child's really falling behind and you're scared, you can still request a student study team right now. You can still request a full battery and evaluation. And there's all sorts of resources we still have, even though we're in a pandemic. We have to advocate for our children. Especially, as they get into junior high and high school, we often talk about this concept of them advocating for themselves. And sometimes we force that. In a pandemic, we got to pull it back. We've got to consistently show that we're the adult in the situation. Our kids are relying on us for that. It really can feel so completely overwhelming to try to balance all of this. In addition to the pandemic, we've had shifts in politics, shifts in the weather, the seasons. Literally, it gets dark at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Doesn't it feel like it's getting dark by like 2 and 3 in the afternoon now? It's crazy. There's so many shifts that happen right now. The days seem shorter. The darkness is coming earlier. Like, so much change is happening. Be okay. Just be okay that there's a lot of change and it's not constant. It's not consistent right now. That's just kind of the state that we're in. But as we do that, and I said this before and I want to say it again, anytime you feel your balance is off, allow yourself to step back and reset. It's essential. Remind yourself to find the calm, because we lead the charge with kids and with teenagers. And if we're not calm, there's no reason that we can expect them to be. It's not rational. But if we lead with a calm heart and a calm mind as much as possible, not all the time, because we're literally living in chaos, but whenever you can calm it down and reset it, you will see a change in everyone. And if at any point you've got somebody in your family who's totally freaking out, take them outside. Getting people outside can shift them so quickly. The cold air, the light difference, everything. I mean, really, really, really such a great opportunity. So with that, I want to say thank you for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it. I also want to open it up to any questions. I think it's really important that we have a dialogue, and really, I want to be a resource for you. I appreciate what people have been saying in the chat. Thank you so much, Catherine, for your comments. Thank you also for the people who've been privately commenting. But I just want to open it up there. Actually, let me stop sharing so I can see everybody a little bit bigger. But let's go ahead and open it up. Is there anybody that has any questions or comments or just any thoughts on this concept right now? I'm going to silently wait for a minute. I know it's a little uncomfortable, but just be with me, because sometimes people need a minute or two before they feel comfortable speaking. So anybody who'd like to share any comments on what we covered in the workshop tonight, or any questions or thoughts?
I'll share.
Yes, I would love to share.
Go ahead. You
Two
go.
people, yay!
Okay. I am so thankful for everything that you shared today. I think our parents and everybody need it. And it's very important for all of us to understand that nobody knows really this solution, or nobody has made it through a pandemic before. So as educators, as parents, as students, we all are struggling just to learn to figure out how we're going to make this happen. So I think I'm very thankful for all the tips with all of us.
Absolutely, Ingrid. I'm so glad you could be here tonight. And it's just like, I don't know if you guys remember Felix the Cat, that old cartoon, where he just had this bag of magic and he's constantly pulling out different strategies. Another thing I want to mention too, right now we're having a lot of teacher and educator fatigue. So if at any point you are engaging with an educator, remind them how important they are. Remind them they're doing a good job in a really bad situation. Because really, if we can help to fill those vessels, just imagine what those people can do, the power, So it's a great time to send a little note, or to send, just as something like, hey, I see you. Thanks for helping me with my kids. Yeah.
It's like the other mom was sharing about that, or grandma was sharing that she's working at the same time. Like our teachers are also at home working while they have trying to be their own kids' teacher. Or like today, I have my admin. I was talking to with one of my admins, and she have her 2 years old, and I was like trying to have a serious conversation about something important. And it was really hard to have it, so I have to remind myself and was trying to keep her calm. It takes more time to do anything during COVID that it used to take us before. So we have to be more patient with our kids, with ourselves, with everyone.
Ingrid, I agree 100%. Every once in a while, I'll see somebody make a comment online like teachers are doing nothing, and it's like, actually most teachers are working like 12 to 14 hours a day right now. And so I think it's real simple to make judgments on others, but let's just try and keep it positive and think about the impact.
I can give an example for myself. For example, I'm a school counselor. For me, before to do a graduation check with my seniors, it was just to print the transcript and walk to the classroom. This year, I have to do a PDF form for each of them, create appointment in calendar for each of them, and then email them the rest of the information. And I was like, can I go back to the classroom, please? Yeah. It's taking forever.
It's unbelievable how so much of the paperwork piece of it is taking. And it's because our whole system shifted. It's kind of like when we went 20 to 1 in kindergarten through 3rd grade, and we decided to put the legislation in before we trained teachers. So we didn't have enough people to actually, that's what's happening with the pandemic. It's something unexpected, and I think we're going to be trying to figure it out for a while. We haven't all figured it out yet, Sandy, I think you were going to say something too.
Yeah, well, one of my biggest ahas with this Zoom call is kind of to just shift from the normal way of thinking of we got to do good in school, we got, academics, and shifting more to our mental well-being being okay, and the academic will follow, and we just have to trust that. So that was huge for me today, because I'm old school and I'm like, you got to do good in school. You got to do this. And sometimes, I'm the first to say, I like want to kill my kids, my grandkids. And so they're like, pay attention, and
Andy,
so,
I so know it. You should have heard me when one of my kids had a C in class, and I'm like, don't you understand that when you get to grad school, C's don't count? And my kid's like, Mom, I'm in ninth grade, or like, and I'm like, yeah, I guess you have a while to grad school, and I don't even know if you're going to go to grad school. Like, but it was my anxiety.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
was a progress report too. I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I worried?
And you're somebody who's like specializing in this, so I mean, to hear that, it really is supportive to shift the mind. One of the things, and I'll chat more with you offline about this, is I have an idea here locally in Castaic that I'm working on, in trying to bring some socialization to the children, but at the same time be very mindful of all these restrictions that we have. But I would love to hear your feedback on my idea and what your thoughts are on getting this done, because I am going to try a pilot thing with one of our local ranches here in Castaic, to see if we can get something where we can do Zoom socialization and then have a meeting in person at the ranch, since there's 5 acres there and we can have the animals, and that's just kind of throwing it out there. But I would love to hear your feedback on what you think about that.
Sandy, I'd love to talk to you more about it. It sounds like a great concept. We also know that anytime a child interfaces with an animal, especially on a ranch, it's basically the best therapy they can have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the more at risk of the child, the more benefit they get from it.
Well, and this is a ranch that
like the animals are not threatening.
Mhm.
Sometimes animals have been previously abused or hurt or somehow not taken care of, and then they see them thriving in a different environment. Are you thinking about straightening the reins? Is that
That's exactly who I partnered up with, and that's who I'm working with. And I'm actually having an event on the 12th with the Grinch. I don't know if you've seen that.
I saw that. So that's you. Okay, excellent.
Yeah. So I'm being very careful with that as well, and it's by appointment only. And the idea is to give the kids, and this is stuff that I'm just doing, I'm trying to give like a little bit of like happiness to these children, wherever it is. Come over, take a picture with the Grinch, touch the animals, and I'm raffling off a couple of cookie boxes that they're going to be doing a Zoom call that evening. Nice. So I think it's really important right now. This is really important for our kids.
I love it too. And I think we really need to be looking at out of the box ways that we can continue to have these opportunities. This is not related to kids, but this is going to sound silly, but it's important to me. Like my family, me and one of my best friends goes to the Harvest Festival every year, and we do all this shopping with it's like boutiquing and all handmade stuff. And we've done it for 10 years. And so this year I'm like, oh my gosh, we're not going to go to the Harvest Festival. And then all of a sudden somebody in Santa Clarita was like, we're going to do an outdoor boutique crawl. And I was like, oh, can I just tell you, me and my friend went to 15 backyards in like 6 hours. And I'm not going to lie, my heart was filled for like 2 weeks from that.
Yeah.
Just today, I sent a message to one of my colleagues going, oh, I bought you something that I need your address because I need to mail it, because I'm going to mail her this little thing. And it's going to be a big deal when, you know what I mean? Like little things are big deals right now. And so anytime we can find opportunities for those little things or things that we feel are little, just know that they're significant to the kids. What you're doing right now with the Castaic event, with the Grinch and the holidays and being able to be at the ranch, there's going to be so many people that are going to greatly benefit from that. And honestly, if for some reason we get more of a stricter lockdown before then, it's going to be like, well, it locked down and everybody's going to understand. So I think I'd love to talk with you more. I love this idea of, alternatives. Like early in the summer, I worked with a group of people, including Yolanda and some who are on right now from the city of Santa Clarita, on this concept of peace bags. And we handed out 300 peace bags for 3 weeks. So we handed out 900 bags that had hands-on activities and stuff for kids just to make them feel good. Well, I've got to be honest with you. I wrote a grant so we can do it again in spring. I don't know if we're going to get it. I'm hoping we do. But I wrote a grant for something called wellness bags. And we're going to buy things like fidgets and Play-Doh and stuff that the kids can touch and grab and do stuff with, because it will help them to feel better. And right now we need kids to feel better. You know, like I said, the academics, all that will catch up as long as everybody can survive this, you know? Yeah. And I don't mean to sound like so dramatic, you guys, but like we're going to lose some people. And not just from COVID, but from things they may do based on it. So we don't want to lose anybody. We don't want to lose it. Life is too good. There's too many good, happy things in life to let some of the negative stuff consume us. So when we see people who are consuming in it, who are isolating or whatever, we're the ones who are going to be like, find your calm. You know, are you isolating? How can I help? What resources can I get to you? You know, let's be the agents of change that help the kids in our community, you know, is what it comes down to. Our kids and everybody, you know, we're really the stewards of everybody's children. And if we really, I mean, and I know a lot of you that are on, you're all walking the talk with me. You know, we contribute as much as possible. So let's keep looking for different opportunities and ways that we can connect our kids. What other questions or comments does everybody want to talk about?
I have one, Renee, because you brought it up again. I wanted to ask your opinion when we're talking about the thing where, you know, parents are worried their kids are getting behind or that their grades are suffering, or is the learning actually happening? And I wanted to just kind of get your take on that, like behind what? Because
what do you mean behind? Oh, behind what?
I'm just saying, like, if every first grader in California is distance learning, who are you really behind on learning to read? Or if you know, and so I that's my take on it to a certain degree, I will tell you, but I know I can be a little different that way. But
Sarah, I feel very similar because I feel like we've created a system where from the moment that our kids are born, we feel like we're in this race to have the kid who's the smartest and the most popular and the most this and the most that. And we're making our kids crazy by what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like we're the ones who are setting them up for failure by the systems that we've created. And by making it like, oh my gosh, 8 months of school is going to devastate you for the rest of your life. Okay, if we're looking at the population, realistically, you might have like 0.001 or 0.002 that falls into that category. You know what I mean? There will be some people that this will be harmed for potentially for life. And then there's going to be a lot of people that are going to show resiliency, and we're going to see all sorts of resources and interventions and opportunities for our kids. Once we're able to go back into a face-to-face environment, I mean, our superintendent of K-12 for the state was talking about, well, should we get rid of summer and start doing school during summer? To extend the school year. And they have all these different creative ideas. Don't worry, because I've already told them I didn't think that was a good idea.
I don't think that's a good idea. But I just can't help but
add more to enrich what we do.
Say the worst happens and it takes forever to get a vaccine out there, and we're not actually back in school till next year.
You realize, I don't know if I should stop recording. I'm feeling
it's a good chance, right? But say, you know, all those kids that are starting 5th grade and the last time they were in the classroom was at the end of 3rd grade.
What an opportunity.
Guess what? All of those kids starting 5th grade, and there's going to be a gamut. There are going to be kids like in a normal school year, you're going to start 5th grade and you're going to have kids that are way up here and kids that are way down here. And that 5th teacher is going to have to differentiate the teaching. And now we're going to have either a broader spectrum, or we're going to have a whole group of kids that are like, all right, we're all starting over again with times tables. Even though it's 5th grade, let's go ahead and start over again because we didn't, you know, get them down in 3rd grade.
Well, here's the thing. Like, so what are we doing for our 5th graders right now that don't have their timetables?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that happens all the time. Here's what I think is great about this. Okay. And I'm a big believer in like silver linings and finding the good in things. We were on the brink of an education revolution because our system has been not doing what it needs to do for our society. And so we've needed to break down education for a while. So this is us reimagining education moving forward. There are think tanks across the nation, if not even across the world, that are looking at how do we, based on what's happening right now, how do we reimagine what education looks like moving forward? We were already going in the direction of individualizing education. It's much more of like, we used to have just our IEPs, our individualized education plans for our special ed students. Guess what? We're now making those for a lot of our students. We're making these maps and these plans and whatnot, and it's becoming so much more individual, which is exactly what education needs to be. Because if you, like, I think about when I was a kindergarten teacher and I had a student who came in who already knew how to add and subtract up into the thousands. Why would I be worrying about him learning how to add 1 + 1 when he could regroup and do all these other higher level skills? And so sometimes we're so stuck on what's supposed to be kindergarten or supposed to be 5th grade or supposed to be whatever. Now we need to step back and say, okay, let me look at Sarah's 2 children and figure out what she needs and what he needs. And based on what's happened in the pandemic, where are the gaps and what can we do to fill those gaps? Our education system right now is based on pre-internet. Why do we have kids memorize spelling lists, memorize where everything is listed geographically, memorize all this like content that we can find at a click now? Our system hasn't caught up with technology and our civilization. So this is the chance for it to happen. I don't think it's going to be super clean and easy and stuff. It's going to be really messy.
I'm with you on that, like that whole change in education. I do worry, because I've been listening to a lot of it. The struggles that we're having are a little bit different than some of the stuff that you've been explaining. But I do think that a lot of parents, and what I've been hearing from a lot of parents, because I work in education too, is trying to make learning at home look like what learning at school is just really messing a lot of people up. I got one kid who quite literally, we will drag her out of bed because she's got a class she's required to be logged in for at 8:30 every single morning. And then every other day she's done at 9. She will do her work probably 8 p.m. to about 3 a.m. And she's the younger one. And I gave up last spring. I was like, forget it. She's working.
As long as she's sleeping,
she's getting everything turned in. Oh yeah, she's sleeping.
As long
all
as
day, and she's up all night. But like, she's just, guess what? She's a night owl. But she's getting all of her work done. Her facility, her teachers have no problem with her work. She's learning. So I'm not trying to force her to do it during the hours that I'm working during the day, or that,
Now it might be tricky once we go back to more of a standard thing, because you start getting, but here's the thing, we can always reset. And so if it then, and she will at some points in her life where suddenly maybe she gets a job that she wants that has a different schedule than what she likes to sleep, or you know what I mean? But I don't think that we're going to see these like huge societal detrimental waves. I think we need to, unless we create them. Do you know what I mean? Like if we're actively saying this is what's going to happen, how are we going to combat it, and what are we going to do as a society? I think we're going to be okay.
I saw somebody ask you, what are your feelings? Oh God, I'm going to just be like, Renee, 20 questions about helping teachers or helping a student where the teachers are requiring them to turn on cameras, requiring them to be at it's way back there in the chat.
I would suggest that whoever mentioned that, we could talk offline some more about it, because our kids have rights, and don't ever forget it. Okay. And a lot of times they'll go, oh, well, Ed Code says whatever. People's interpretation of Ed Code is usually wrong. I'm going to be honest. And there are things like, we had a notification at the start of the year saying your child will be required to keep their camera on, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? Families started writing back talking about the anxiety that their kids have from having a camera on them 6 hours a day straight or 3 hours a day straight, especially if developmentally you're at a stage where the last thing you want to do is be looking at yourself in a mirror. Guess what? Our junior high and high school kids, a very small percentage of them want to be on camera all the time. We realize that, right? Developmentally. So our system is making policies before we know what the best practices are. And I would look at it almost like an individualized education plan where you say, I understand this is the policy. This is how my child's reacting to it. So I'd like to sit down and talk with you for an accommodation for my child. And maybe the accommodation is that at the start of each class, your child does show their face, and then the teacher allows them to not. And maybe the teacher says, though, I don't want it to be obvious that your child's logging off. So I don't want a black box with a name. So let's work together to take a screenshot of your child in their academic setting, and that can be the picture that's up when they're not live. So it looks like they're there and attentive, but it's really not a live photo in that moment. And so we just have to look for these like little strategies of what can work. And that communication piece where we have to be able to say, your policy is not working. And if they come back and say it's ed code, please call me, because you have no idea how strict I will be about going through ed code to go, okay, well, you're saying it's ed code, then let's go find the ed code and let's go interpret it. Let's have a discussion about ed code. Because ed code is I'm not sure if any of you look into ed code. It's really hard to read. It's, it's like legalese and stuff. And so it's really important that you don't let somebody just say one thing and you just go with it if it's what's wrong for your child. We are our child's strongest advocates. If we're not advocating for them, nobody is. And so don't ever feel guilty that, we have to have those conversations. And if you've got to have one of those conversations and you don't know how to do it, I can be a resource. I don't know everything, but I'd be happy to brainstorm, even like, helping to craft notes for what you might want to say or questions you might want to bring forward. I think surviving and thriving during this pandemic, it's got to be a team effort. I think anybody who's trying, like, we're asking our kids, are you isolating? We need to ask ourselves, are we isolating when we're running into things like that? Because it's not a good time to isolate. It's a time to kind of rally the forces and kind of get what you need. A lot of things that are coming out in terms of like the rules and whatnot, it's like the second they hit, they're saying it before you test it out to see if it works. We usually test out things to see if they're best practice before we push them forward. We don't have time to test out right now, so we're just pushing forward. And that's why you see districts then pulling back. You know what I mean? Like at first it was, this had to be on all the time and here's the rules and here's the rules. And then it was like, oh, wait a second, they got a lot of pushback from their parents. So now they've gotten lax on it. They're relaxing with it and making it basically the child and the family's choice, which we're going to see much more of that, especially as this keeps going. Yeah. What other questions or comments or thoughts do we have? It's a hard time. I wish I could just be like super Pollyanna right now. Like it's just all optimistic. I mean, there's a lot of great silver linings in it. One of my things that I love right now is I'm working with this group on the concept of humanizing virtual learning. And we're taking a year to investigate it and to really come out with some recommendations in case we stay in this space for an extended period of time. Even when we go back face to face, there will be large groups that stay remote for many, many years. So we need to figure out education and kind of how things look like and, how things will look moving forward. But if we can figure it out together, that'll help for sure. Oh, I love this too. Blanca just said, I have a high school senior. She was told to be on camera. My child talked directly to the teacher and they said, no problem. Okay, kids do have rights. We need to remember that for sure. Oh, I love this too. Catherine made a comment about iReady. Would you mention iReady to everybody? Because that might be a resource people don't know about. And some of our districts like have it and people have accessibility to it and they don't realize.
Oh, I love iReady. That's new to our district this year. And yeah, it's amazing that the only struggle was the kids learning when they take the diagnostic test at the beginning and the middle of the school year that they're going to get half wrong because it needs to adjust to their level for reading and for math. And once they realize, okay, it's okay to get half wrong and do their best, then the rest of the time they spend 15, 30 minutes a day, depending on what they do in each subject. And, it's just something that adjusts to their level. So it's not, instead of just sitting in a classroom where a teacher has to teach the same lesson and, okay, my kid already knows how to count to 10 or whatever, he can be doing his times tables. And it's just amazing that that's possible now, when before he'd be in class reading a book.
Yep. iReady is fascinating. And actually I think it's very important for people to know in our community. We had a principal in our town that was so so into iReady, and she implemented it throughout her school so beautifully and successfully. iReady ended up hiring her, and she moved out of being an administrator, and she now works for their company. So we even have leadership in our town from iReady. And iReady is a program that some people love, some people don't love, but it's all about finding what works for you and your kids. And Catherine, the fact that you have a 10-year-old who's into it, just go with it, because it's really an expansive like program where you can learn all sorts of things. So if it's working for your son, excellent. Excellent, excellent. I'm glad to hear that. I'm also glad to hear that the Saugus District has strong social studies programs and some other opportunities and resources. My brother was a principal in Saugus for almost 20 years, and so I'm very glad to hear that. It's a great.
Oh yeah, no, that's completely different because I worked for LA Unified before I had kids, and I said, man, if I had this program when I taught first grade, then it's social studies is amazing. We're my husband and I are learning, relearning.
I love it. I love it. You know, it's funny because we tend to think that all schools have the same resources. Far from it. I started in Northern California, in Hollister, California. And when I first started teaching, this is embarrassing, I'm going to tell you though, I had science books that were from before somebody landed on the moon. I had a class of 35 kids, and I had 15 math books for 35 kids. Just things you can't even imagine. I came down when I started teaching for Castaic. I will never forget the first day of training in the district office. I had so many teacher edition books. I have to step back. It was probably like 4 feet tall. I was walking out with curriculum and resources. And I remember thinking, wow, I just worked at a school that had 98% of my kids on free and reduced lunch. And I probably had 1/20th of the curriculum that I'm getting access to right now. And it was great though, because as a teacher, you realize it's not fair. And then you think to yourself, well, if I'm what can I do to make it even better for my kids, So I'm so glad you're in a district that really is providing a lot of resources. We're very lucky in Santa Clarita. I think everybody knows our schools are really, really some of the most top-notch schools in the state of California. And our teachers here are beautifully trained. Every once in a while, you get somebody who maybe isn't the best match for your child, but overall, we have a really highly competent group of educators in our community. We're very lucky with our schools, very lucky. But, in the pandemic, like I said before, it's all new and we're all trying to figure it out. We're trying to make it work, right? Progress, not perfection. We've got to remember that one. Any other comments or questions that anybody would like to share? Okay, well, we are coming up right at 8:30 right now. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat one more time. Again, my name is Renee Marshall, and it has been an absolute pleasure to be here tonight. I really appreciate it. I give parenting workshops for the city of Santa Clarita every once in a while. I'll actually be talking about this same topic on KHTS on Friday the 18th at 9 o'clock in the morning. So if you'd like to hear a little bit more, please join me that day. But thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I greatly appreciate you taking your time and investing in your kids. I know they appreciate it as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and please let me know how I can be a resource. Take care.
Hey, Renee, good job. That was awesome.
Oh, thanks, Blanca.
I